Okay, so I think this is going to be the last video that I upload today. This particular video right here is watch exclusive. New U.S. President Donald Trump enforces a tough stance on Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. Remember, that's the Sahel Alliance that I was talking about. And we just saw President Ibrahim Traore as he was addressing his young ministers. So let's get into the story. Here we go. This video right here is shorter.
Chai, Mobile. It is no secret that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have emerged as strong African nations actively resisting Western influence in their countries. These nations have taken bold, unapologetic stances, challenging the traditional dominance of Western powers. From expelling Western troops to delivering assertive critiques on global platforms, they have proven their determination to chart their own paths. However, recent developments involving the United States under its newly elected President Donald Trump have left these nations, particularly Niger, frustrated and disappointed. Let's delve deeper into the unfolding situation to understand the roots of their discontent. Following a historic coup on July 27, 2023, Niger saw the rise of General Abdourahmane Chiani as its new military leader. In a dramatic shift, Chiani's administration prioritized the sovereignty and interests of Niger, declaring an end to decades of perceived exploitation by foreign powers. One of his first significant moves was expelling US troops from Niger, a decision that marked a definitive stand against foreign military influence in the Sahel region. This action, while celebrated domestically and among Niger's allies, drew sharp criticism from the West. The expulsion of American troops was a direct challenge to US strategic interests in the region, especially given Niger's role in counter-terrorism operations and its rich natural resources. The backlash from the US establishment was swift and severe. In a controversial statement, Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, under the Biden administration, openly called for an invasion of Niger during a session in the US House of Representatives. Gaetz's remarks, which painted the Nigerian government as third world thugs, were widely condemned as imperialistic and dismissive of Niger's right to self-determination. His fiery rhetoric seemed to reflect a broader frustration among US policymakers over the anti-imperialist revolution sweeping across the Sahel region. When Donald Trump won the US presidential election, there was cautious optimism among some African nations that his administration might adopt a more non-interventionist approach.
Absolutely not.
However, those hopes were quickly dashed when Trump nominated Matt Gaetz for the position of US Attorney General. This decision was perceived as a direct insult to Niger and its allies, given Gaetz's aggressive stance on Niger's policies. His nomination signaled to many that the new administration might double down on hawkish strategies in Africa. The move has particularly angered Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, three nations that share a vision of reclaiming their sovereignty from foreign powers. Gaetz's nomination not only legitimized his previous incendiary remarks, but also raised fears of potential US aggression or covert operations aimed at destabilizing the region.
You know what a real U.S. president would do? Say that C-130s are on their way to Niger today with the water and the medicine and the food our troops need, that they will have a full fighter pilot escort there. And if the Nigerian government or any other third world thug tries to even turn on their air defense systems, we should show those leaders and those thugs what the target package looks like on their houses and their family members.
To fully grasp why Niger expelled...
Did you hear that? This guy is talking about openly attacking Africa because they want to exercise their right at sovereignty. See, America and its Western allies want to preserve the international rules-based order. They say it time and again. And this right here should be a lesson to all of those black folks in America who voted for Donald Trump. So you don't just vote for his internal policies, you also vote for his external international policies. Let it be a lesson.
US troops from its territory, we must examine the deeper context and the rationale laid out by Niger's leadership. A pivotal moment in this saga was the release of a striking English-language video from Niger's military leader, General Abdurrahmane Chiani, who revealed numerous grievances that had accumulated over the years. The video not only provided insights into Niger's decision, but also painted a damning picture of the nature of US-Niger cooperation. Let's break down the key revelations and their significance. A call for sovereignty. General Chiani began by addressing the principles underpinning cooperation between sovereign states, emphasizing that such partnerships must serve the mutual interests of both parties. He pointed out that the agreement between Niger and the United States, established in 2012, lacked transparency and fairness. Chiani posed a critical question to the people of Niger. Where are the interests of Niger in this agreement, which has just been denounced by the CNSP, National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland? This question highlighted a fundamental issue. Niger's interests were not adequately considered or respected in the bilateral agreement, raising concerns about whether the US presence was a genuine partnership or an imposition. General Chiani did not hold back in outlining the specific issues Niger faced under the so-called cooperation with the United States. These revelations shed light on the perceived exploitation and inequities in the arrangement. Chiani criticized the absence of a legally binding agreement that clearly outlined the terms of cooperation. Instead, the relationship relied on informal verbal notes that failed to address Niger's interests. This lack of formal documentation left Niger in a vulnerable position, with no concrete commitments from the US. One of the most shocking revelations was that the US forces stationed in Niger refused to provide the coordinates of terrorist bases, even as Niger faced relentless attacks.
Do you hear this right here? Okay, so the United States said that their military bases in those particular countries are there to fight terrorism, but they refuse to provide the governments of these countries with the coordinates of the so-called terrorist bases. Yeah, I would have kicked them out also. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't have gave them notice. I would have gave them 24-hour notice. You got to leave here immediately or suffer the consequences.
Undermine the very purpose of US military presence, which was ostensibly to support Niger's counter-terrorism efforts.
Had nothing to do with
Chiani
that.
highlighted the economic strain imposed by the US presence. Instead of the US covering its operational costs, Niger was forced to pay taxes related to American military aircraft.
They made the Nigerian government pay taxes for their planes using their soil and airspace. Outstanding.
This arrangement stood in stark contrast to other countries like Djibouti, where the US pays $63 million annually in rental fees for its bases. Niger, by comparison, received nothing. The US was accused of blatantly violating international principles such as the San Francisco Charter of 1945 and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, both of which emphasize the rights of nations to self-determination and non-interference in their internal affairs. By undermining Niger's ability to make independent decisions, the US presence was seen as a form of neo-imperialism.
That's exactly what
Chiani expressed frustration over the US's expectation that Niger automatically adopt its geopolitical priorities. He criticized the idea that the US's enemies should be considered Niger's enemies, or that Niger should not have the right to choose its own partners. This attitude, he argued, disregarded Niger's sovereignty and agency. General Chiani concluded by saying that we are no one's fags. The video culminated in a powerful declaration by General Chiani, where he stated unequivocally, the CNSP's denunciation of this military cooperation puts an end to our self-flagellation and gives full meaning to this assertion. We are no one's fags. This statement underscored Niger's desire to break free from what it viewed as a humiliating and exploitative relationship. By rejecting the US military's terms, Niger aimed to reclaim its dignity and autonomy on the global stage. Niger's decision to expel US troops was more than an isolated act. It was a symbolic rejection of neo-colonial practices and a call for a new era of equitable partnerships. This move resonated with other African nations, particularly Burkina Faso and Mali, who share similar aspirations for sovereignty and resistance against foreign dominance. Niger's stance also poses challenges for the US, which has relied on its military presence in the Sahel for strategic purposes, including counterterrorism and securing access to valuable resources.
That's what it's about.
General Chiani's
Nothing to
detailed
do with
critique
counterterrorism.
revealed systemic flaws in the US's approach to international partnerships, particularly in Africa. The expulsion of US troops from Niger was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a calculated response to years of perceived exploitation and disregard for Niger's interests. General Chiani's video laid bare the inequities and injustices inherent in the relationship, sending a clear message. Niger would no longer tolerate arrangements that failed to respect its sovereignty and dignity. This bold move by Niger has set a precedent for other nations to demand more equitable terms in their dealings with global powers. By reclaiming control over its own affairs, Niger has signaled the rise of a new wave of African independence, challenging the long-standing dominance of Western powers in the region. Now returning to the new Trump administration, the anger of these Sahelian nations stems from a broader pattern of Western dismissal of African autonomy. For Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the fight against exploitation is not just political, but also symbolic.
Look at Traore. I told you, boy, he's a big, solid African. He got to be about, what, 6'3", 6'2", 6'3"? Solid, pure muscle. Every white woman's fantasy.
And for African dignity and independence. Gaetz's nomination to a key role in Trump's administration is viewed as a continuation of the West's historical tendency to undermine African leaders who resist its influence. Furthermore, the anti-imperialist movements in these nations resonate beyond their borders. They inspire other African countries to assert their sovereignty, creating a ripple effect that threatens to dismantle long-standing neo-colonial structures. The growing rift between the United States and these African nations highlights a fundamental clash of ideologies, one rooted in neo-imperialism and the other in self-determination. As Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger continue to resist external pressures, their bold stance serves as a reminder of Africa's enduring quest for independence and equality on the global stage. The Trump administration's decisions in the coming months will undoubtedly shape the future of US-Africa relations, but for now, these nations remain resolute in their defiance.
Anyone living paycheck to paycheck now qualified.
Now remember what President Putin said a couple weeks back, that his partners in Africa will enjoy total support. See, the Russians and Chinese, they come in with infrastructure. You know, they buy their way in. They don't take and give, you know, that you take and give nothing back. That's not the way they do business. And this is the reason why France, the United States, and other Western colonial powers are losing ground in Africa, being kicked out. This is why the French are so mad. This is why, you know, they keep coming up with assassination plots against Traore in particular. I mean, it seemed like it's this visceral hatred for him in particular. But, you know, the other countries that are a part of the alliance, the Sahel Alliance, they're suffering their own contradictions, you know, promulgated in the West. But on that, I'm going to end. You know, this is 3 videos I uploaded in one day. The shorter videos, of course, but I want us to just bring you some news about Africa. Remember why this channel was created. We have to develop international relations. All countries of the Sahel Alliance has invited African Americans back to help rebuild. They're receiving total support from Russia, but they're also receiving support from China, Iran, countries like that. You know, the new BRICS formations. So like and subscribe to the video and just tell me what you think. And we're going to end there.